Chat. We do these on Thursday nights when it's not the Thanksgiving holiday or Christmas. I have with me tonight Air Mike from the forums.
Hola.
Hola, indeed. And we're missing Jim and Vinny and others. And so if you're dying to jump in, what you can do is go to the caddyinfo.com forums, and I post a message uh, uh, each chat with a link to how you can join us here on Google Hangouts. You can also, I'll put up the Q&A and make sure we have the Q&A up. There is a mechanism on the Hangouts where you can post a question and interact with us that way. So if you don't have video, you don't have audio, you don't want to be on camera, then Q&A. And what that lets you do is post a question, and we can indicate that we recognize that question and respond to it online. So Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good, good. Any car news in your stable?
No, I got my wife's car back. I guess it's a Grand Prix. Got it
Yes.
back, getting the transmission rebuilt the other day. So
So,
that's better.
so the last time I did that, that was fairly expensive.
This was $1,200. The guy used to have a transmission shop. Just done it at his house.
I
He's
think that's
retired.
quite a bit less than what I paid. Yeah.
Right. He took it out and everything. I just had to drive it over there.
Oh, that's perfect. That's
Yep.
the level of service I would want as well.
That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to take it out.
Yes. So one of the things in the Cadillac news lately is before Cadillac was saying, hey, look, our cars are commanding premium prices, and we don't care that we're not selling that many because, look, they're commanding premium prices. This, in the last couple of weeks, Denishans actually said, you know what, we're going to price the cars a little bit below market and let them earn their way into the market. So, for example, the new CT6, which competes with the short wheelbase version of the 7 Series or the Audis, is actually priced a little bit below where they would be priced, even though it's that premium luxury category. And so it's going to be priced, 53 to 83 instead of like the BMW 7 Series, which is priced from 70 to 100. So it's going to be basically priced $20,000 below its competition. Now that can backfire a little bit, right? Because people can look at that and say, I'm shopping for a $70,000 car and the Cadillac's not. Or it can really work well because people look at it and say, I'm shopping for a $70,000 car. Oh, I can get the premium version of the CT6 with the extra bells and whistles for $70K. Okay.
Right. I wonder how you predict that.
What do you think in that range? Do you think people will say, well, I don't want a CT6 because it's a $50,000 to $80,000 car and I'm shopping for a $70,000 car? Or would they just see that as those are equivalent cars? So I could either have a BMW 7 Series for $100,000 or a CT6 Premium or a CT6 Platinum for $80,000 and save, $20,000 for a makeover.
I think people that would be new to Cadillac would be after the bargain, and the people that have been having Cadillacs for a long time might think, well, they're making our car less value or something.
Well, it's still going to be expensive compared with a DTS or a XTS, right? That they generally top out around 50, and this one's going to start at 50 and run up to 80. And so for that crowd, this is going to be a very expensive sedan. Now, and Cadillac has not done well in the sedan market this year. Internationally, they have because Chinese sales, but in the United States, the sedans have not done well. So, and one of the other things Denisian said, bless his heart, was don't ask me why I have 3 different cars in the same market. The XTS is about the same size. It's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but it's about the same size as the CTS, and not that different a size than upcoming CT6, right? The CT6 is actually quite a bit bigger because it's 122-inch wheelbase. It's going to be a great big car. I don't think people understand how big this car is, but it's going to be a full-size car. Although it's almost as light as an ATS because of the advanced aluminum they're using. That was another thing they're doing, is they're working to make sure that people are going to be able to deal well with the aluminum structures. It uses aluminum and high tensile steel structuring. And so they're working to make sure that people will be able to deal with that.
People will be able to deal with it. I don't understand.
For the repair sites will be able to deal with the technology of
right.
the metal technology. That was one of the things that Ford dealt with as they came out with more aluminum in their pickup trucks, is they were concerned that garages wouldn't know how to deal with the aluminum.
Right. I remember seeing some video on how to repair them one time.
Yes. Now, so Cadillac has also said the CT6 is not, the top of the line, that there's a CT7 or CT8 coming. We haven't heard an announcement yet about what exactly it'll be called, but notionally a CT8, which would be an even bigger car and maybe look like the CL, which is the 4-seat convertible or coupe, but even larger than the CT6, because Cadillac's numbering the cars by the size of the car. So if the CT6 is 122-inch wheelbase, then the CT8 may be 126-inch wheelbase, which is almost as big as the old classic Cadillacs, right?
So that seems like a good thing to me. Aren't there people who are been missing the big Cadillac?
Yeah, the CT6 will be a big Cadillac, as I say. But I was trying to think how that wheelbase compares with some of the older cars. Where you'd have to go back to get a 122-inch wheelbase. Like a long wheelbase S10 has a 123-inch wheelbase. The full size pickup trucks.
Oh.
But yeah, I'd have to look back to see what year of Cadillacs. The 1938 Packard had a 122-inch wheelbase. But what cars that we know, like if we looked at the wheelbase for the Fleetwoods, you remember the 1995 Fleetwood was a great full-size car. It had a 121-inch wheelbase. So the CT6 is going to be that size.
Right.
Like the 93 through, the 91 through 96 Fleetwoods, which it may not be that wide because those were great big full body cars, right? Now, did you ever spend, I don't think I've ever been inside one of those.
Geez, I don't think I have either. I was never a first person interested in that large of a car. I know there's a lot of people that want them, but they were never my cup of tea.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, is I like smaller cars, but I know a lot of our Cadillac fans want the great big cars. So that Fleetwood was 6.5 feet wide. And the interior, well, you can't tell from the hip room and so on, but so 6.5 feet wide. Let's see what the CT6 is in terms of width. It's 6 feet and 2 inches. So it'll be about 4 inches less wide than the 96 Fleetwood was. But that 96 Fleetwood was a big car. It was actually bigger than the Impala was, that Cadillac used. The Impala was the B body, and Cadillac used what they called a D body, where they took and stretched the wheelbase from the Impala. The Impala SS was kind of the cousin to the Fleetwood. And for the Fleetwood, they actually stretched it a couple of inches beyond the Impala SS. So although they had the same powertrain, you could get that LT1 engine and 4-speed automatic with 260 horsepower. But the Cadillac was actually a longer wheelbase. Otherwise, the same kind of performance stats as the Impala.
So they
Sorry,
were getting that big ride.
yeah, exactly, and that's where the CT6 is going to be. So if you're sad that you missed the full size Impala with 260 horsepower, then the CT6 may be the ride for you, especially the twin turbo with 400 horsepower is going to be a joy. So, but by the time you get the twin turbo in the premium, it's going to be 68. So it's going to be pricey.
But
Now,
you said cheaper than.
but cheaper than a BMW would be, yeah, equivalent BMW. It starts at 70, and so that's going to be, with the 3-liter engine. And by the time you get a BMW V8, then you're up in the 90s or 100. And so, yeah, you're still less than the BMW, but bless you. But of course, I don't know how many BMW 7 Series customers are really shopping for a CT6. I mean, I think they should be. I think the CT6 would be, a good car for them. I'm not saying that, but I don't know how many of them are really shopping for a CT6. Yeah, BMW 750i is the one that comes with the 445 horsepower V8, and that's 95, starts at 95. So by the time you get any extras on it, then you would be, and it has a 126-inch wheelbase, so it's about 4 inches than longer in wheelbase than the upcoming CT6. So this will be an interesting car. Now, what did you tell me this already? What's your prediction for sales of the CT6? How many a month do you think Cadillac will sell worldwide? Worldwide sales per month.
I wouldn't have a clue. I couldn't
So,
even get stuff like that.
so let me frame it for you. Okay. So if the CT6 is going to do better than the XTS, the worldwide monthly sales of the XTS are 4,000 last month. 4,000. The CTS only 1,600 though. So the CTS is really, not doing well right now. The ATS did great, 6,000, because they're doing really great in China. In the United States, Cadillac was right on par, but in China, their sales went up 56%, 57%. Also in the EU and Russia, 57%. So, so that's going to be the challenge: is 1,600 for CTSs, and the CT6 is going to cost more than the CTS, but it is going to be quite a bit bigger. The CTS, I think, has been criticized because it's pretty, but it's a little cramped. The
It's always
ATS,
struck me as just a small car.
it's not that small. It's smaller than my car is, because I think it's 113-inch wheelbase. But by comparison, the new CT6 will have 9-inch longer wheelbase. I keep talking about wheelbase, and what we're talking about is the distance in between the front axle and the rear axle. And the reason that's important is that's the space where the passengers sit. Generally, you're there in between the front axle and the rear axle, and then the trunk is behind the rear axle, and the engine's out of the front axle in a front engine rear wheel drive car. And so generally, the wheelbase is a reasonable metric for how much interior cabin space there is. Now, the other thing I would like to see is jump seats in Cadillacs, and I bet we'll never see those again because of safety reasons, right? And by that, I mean, I'd like to see the front row of seats and the back row of seats. And then on the back of the front row, there's a fold down seat, kind of like stewardess flight attendants use on aircraft, where they can just fold it down. And when you're just going across town, your bodyguards can sit there on the fold down seats facing backwards.
Your bodyguard, huh?
Well, your bodyguards or your extra dates. So if you have your main dates on the seat next to you, your extra dates could be on the jump seat.
I'll be sure and get me one of them for my extra date.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it that way to your wife, but yeah, that's the plan. But I would like to see jump seats again. I don't know how much people actually use jump seats, and I'm certain they are not safety. They're not safe ways to sit, right?
Right.
Because they wouldn't have the structural integrity of the actual seat and the anchoring and the seat belts and the and so on. What about footrests? Do you how much do you value rear seat luxury, Mike?
I seldom ride in the back, so
None. So none.
none. Yeah, but people want to ride back there. It's got to be. I don't know. If you're gonna have adults in it, you need some room back there. I assume a big Cadillac's not necessarily meant for younger people either.
Yeah, yep. I think there is a there. Some people value it that way because of personal luxury, right? They like the idea of driving a huge car and it's all for them,
Right. So
and
they don't
it's
really
still
care about the
quick,
back.
and it's still quick, and it's still light, and it still gets good miles per gallon, and it's a huge car. Because the CT6 is going to have, it's not going to be heavy like you would think. It's not going to be as heavy as it is big.
And the people driving it are not really going to have that big interest in the back, right?
You would think.
Mm.
I think that there is a big chauffeur market overseas, but I think if I were driving it every day, then no one else is going to be driving me, right? I would be driving it myself. And the only time I would have people in the back seat is if we went out to dinner or something with another couple,
Or your extra dates.
or extra dates, right?
Right.
Although my wife, no.
Right. You'll have to call it something else too.
Yeah, that's not part of the wife plan. There are three rules I live by: stay alive, don't quit from your job, think of ways to delight your wife, and extra dates is not one of the ways to delight your wife.
Yeah,
So,
probably don't fit in there.
yep. Now, extra pets could perhaps fit in but they would need jump seats. And my experience is the pets all want to ride in the driver's seat.
Right.
That none of them want to ride in any of the other seats in the car. So, well, let's see. So you've got a big road trip coming up. I was trying to think what other Cadillac news I knew. What other Cadillac news I knew or know. The but I do appreciate Denishan's view. Andy Pilgrim announced he was one of the Cadillac racing drivers for the last multiple years and successful manufacturers championships for Cadillac. But he announced on his Facebook that Cadillac has let him know that they will not be picking up his contract next season. So I was listening to make sure they're still going to be racing next season. And apparently they are still going to be racing because Johnny O'Connell did not repeat the same thing. So they are still going to be racing, but Andy Pilgrim will not be one of their drivers.
Huh. Was there any information why that was?
Nope. He said he was available and was looking for a different ride. And he does a lot of really wonderful work with his foundation about uh, distracted driving is his special cause, and so he gives speeches and helps focus on distracted driving and trying to help teens understand how important it is to stay focused while you're driving because you have this 3,000 pound steel 3,000 pound projectile around you while you're driving. And so you need to know exactly where it's going at all times. So he said he would like to get an IMSA ride or would like to get another ride for this season, but was available. And Johnny O'Connell posted a nice note about how much everyone respected Indy Pilgrim and how well thought of he was, which was touching. The where you really see Andy's skill set come out is in the rain or in the weather. Then these very experienced drivers, and Andy's about our age, I think, or in the range. But these very experienced drivers could actually keep a better pace in the on the wet tracks or in the rain or in traffic, you know, busy traffic like you find in the World Challenge Series, better than the young drivers could. Just because he's, you know, he'd been through that before and could stay patient, could wait for his opportunity, and so on. That's what having that level of experience brings to the party, right? That yeah, O'Connell was faster in almost every race that he finished, and so clearly there's some difference in the drivers there, but certainly Andy was in the front ranks in almost every event that the car didn't fail him. So it'll be interesting, and maybe they're, you know, I don't know what they're doing. So it'll be interesting. Maybe they're going to run one car, or maybe they're bringing in a different driver. So,
Well, that's too bad for Andy, I guess, if he's still wanting to drive, though.
yeah, I'd like to. Hopefully, he'll get a seat doing something else. That you can't do everything forever, and I don't think he's going to be missing any meals over this. So that's a blessing. We've still got the XT5 coming any day now. The One of the things they announced is that the smaller version would be coming the next year. So the XT5 is a 2017 model. The XT5 is the replacement for the SRX. So XT is going to mean crossover truck or crossover touring, depending, but XT is going to stand for the crossovers. So XT5 is going to be this first one, which is about the size of an SRX. And then we have a smaller one coming and a bigger one coming. They'd like to see one about the size of an Escalade and a smaller one. And that directly competes with the BMW X3, X5, X7 approach. There was a time when the one SRX outsold all the BMWs, but BMW's kind of cracking that market. And so now Cadillac realizes they need different sizes of crossovers.
So they're still going to have a Suburban and whatever this new one is.
I believe that that's true. I don't think that they're going to rename the new one the Escalade. I think that they'll still have a full body on frame truck based Escalade, but that this car will be called, the one that's coming now is the XT5. The one that's coming in 2018 is an XT4 and XT3, and then the one that's coming after that is an XT6, 7, or 8.
So the Escalade, it's been their big seller for a long time now.
The Escalade is sold well, and it holds price premium very well. It's not a big seller, and by that I mean they're selling 3,500 of them a month. They sell more than that of the XTS. They sell 4,000 XTSs, so it doesn't sell as. And we think the XTS isn't selling as many as it should, right? But the thing with the Escalade, as I say, to keep in mind is the Escalade is selling at an average transaction price of over $80,000. The XTS is probably selling at an average transaction price of half that. And so if you're selling, you know, would you rather sell $4,000, $80,000 trucks or $4,000, $40,000 cars?
Oh, yeah.
I'd always rather sell Escalades, right? And Escalade, Cadillac hasn't wanted to say Escalade was their flagship, but certainly during this last decade, Escalade was the most expensive and largest Cadillac. So there's a quiz question for you. What is the wheelbase of the current Escalades?
So it's longer than that new X. Well, heck, I don't even know. The
CT6. The CT6 is the new one coming.
And it's 121, right?
121. So the Escalade's actually smaller than that. The Escalade has the same wheelbase as my car.
Really?
116 inches. Huh. Now the long wheelbase Escalade, I'm going to say it's long wheelbase, but the Escalade ESV, the Escalade ESV, oh, it's still 116 inches. Also, it's still 116 inches. So what am I getting wrong here? So the Escalade ESV, is it longer behind the rear wheels? Is that what it is? Because it's 200. Oh, maybe they're tricking me here.
Hmm.
No, the Escalade, let's see. This Escalade, the base Escalade, the base Escalade, 116-inch wheelbase. The Escalade ESV is 130-inch wheelbase.
Oh, that sounds
So
more.
that's the big Cadillac at the moment, 130 inches. So we have to see if the CT7 or the CT8, the one that's going, the CT6 that's coming is 121 inches. The Escalade ESV, the extended version of the Escalade, is 130 inches. So clearly that's what you and I need, is an Escalade ESV. It's 224 inches long. I
some
don't think
people,
it'll fit in my garage.
some people surely don't want to drive a car that big.
Well, no, a big difference is that the Escalade ESV weighs 6,000 pounds, and the new CT6 that's almost it's 121 instead of 130, so it's 9 inches shorter. But the new CT6 is going to be 3,600 pounds, so it's
Oh,
almost
wait a
half
minute.
the weight. Almost half the weight.
That's incredible amount of weight difference.
Yes, and of course that's because the Escalade is a full body on frame truck. It has a full chassis, not a unibody setup, and so on.
So the new one's going to be a unibody
Like
deal.
like the current sedans are, yes.
Hmm.
It's high structure, high strength steel, reinforced with aluminum. With aluminum for the parts that don't need to be high strength steel. So it's going to have all premium materials, and should have the cool new dash, and it's going to have the 34 speaker sound system, and it's going to have the video rear view mirrors and so on. So it ought to be the cat's meow, but yeah, it'll weigh a whole car less than an Escalade.
Well, it can't ride as good then, can it?
I
I mean,
have heard a lot of people say that is that they like a big heavy car because it rides better, but I haven't that hasn't been persuasive to me. What do you think about that?
well, that's what I think. They're probably ride better when they're bigger.
Yeah, the low version of the CT6 is going to be the 2-liter turbo, and it's at 3,600 pounds. And then by the time you get up to a platinum twin turbo V6, then it's 4,300 pounds. So it starts at 3,700 pounds, and then by the time you put in the turbos are surprisingly heavy, not the turbos themselves, but supercharged cars and turbocharged cars are heavy because they need the intercooler and the extra water and the cooling and so on for the turbos.
I suppose they get larger oil capacity in the transmission and the engine also probably.
Yep. Extra. That's one of the things that I love Cadillac for, is they put extra coolers on every system, right? As a way to ensure that uh, the car is so basically almost. One of the things people always love to get police versions of cars because they're super duty. Basically, they have extra oil cooling, extra transmission cooling, extra ventilation for the brakes, and so on. And all Cadillacs basically are that way. that they come from the factory with extra cooling on every. My car, the design spec for the STSV was that you could drive it to the track, run it for an entire tank of gas, and nothing would overheat. The
Hmm.
brakes would not overheat. And when they did the CTSV challenge, and they said we'll meet everybody at the racetrack at the Monticello racetrack in the Northeast, said we'll meet everybody there. Run what you bring. And so the journalists brought, Audis, BMWs, and some of those journalists, they brought their cars. But some of the journalists, after one or two laps, were in the CTSVs instead because their car wouldn't run anymore.
Hmm.
They'd run out of brakes, they were bubbling over the brake fluid and so on. And so that's one of the things is the CTSVs ran right out of the box, on the track. You didn't need you don't need a track version of a CTSV or a V series car. It is the track version.
Right.
You don't need a track pack. It's the V series is a track car or a work car. It's just what do you want to use it for? But yeah, the CT6 is going to be an all lightweight platform. It's actually called the Omega platform, and the CT6 and the upcoming CT8 will be on that same platform. But whereas my car is a Sigma 2 or our XLRs were the Y platform, the new big car platform is the Omega platform. But it has these amazing structures and so on. So yeah, that would be kind of fun, is to put some Omega symbols on the back of the car and so on. But that would be kind of you'd have to be a real insider to understand the junk there.
Like having a pachyderm tag on the old Hemi cars. If you didn't know what elephants were, you wasted your time putting that on there.
Yes. But so the CT6 is going to be 8 inches shorter than this. I'm sorry, the CTS, the current CTS is 8 inches shorter than the CT6 and weighs about the same. 8 inches shorter wheelbase and weighs about the same. So that's going to be a super accomplishment for Cadillac. And it's going to introduce, a whole new wave of high luxury, huge full-size cars that get good fuel economy. Well, what other Cadillac news do we know, or can we discuss whether we know or not?
It's good if we don't have to know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I actually have had people tell me that they said, Bruce, you keep bringing me facts and figures and details, and I really liked it better before I knew, because then I could argue anything I wanted. And so the ATS-V has a better lease deal. Jalopnik, I actually like Jalopnik's military news better than I like their car news, and so I'll flip over because they remind me how to get to their military news, which I think is called, I want to say Foxtrot Alpha, but they're the military news done by the same people who do Jalopnik, not literally the same people, but they're owned by the same firm. Okay, so here's the ATS-V lease deal for a 36-month lease. So you could get $559 a month. $559 a month for a 36-month lease is the Cadillac national lease offer on the ATS-V. So for $560 a month, you could drive a brand new ATS-V, or you could drive a regular BMW 340, not the M version, for about the same amount.
Not being ever paid attention to BMWs or actually any foreign cars. What's the M version?
It's like the V series.
It's supercharged. Or
well, the M3s, yeah, are turbocharged. The new ones, I think, are having a V6. The previous one had a small V8. I think the new one is a pumped up V6. The 2016 is a 425 horsepower, 3-liter 6-cylinder, and it weighs about 3,500 pounds. But that's with the the full turbo version. So Cadillac's still losing a little weight by the time you get the ATS-V. So an ATS-V versus, so the M3 is at 3,500 pounds, and I think the ATS-V is at 3,900 pounds. So yeah, 3,800 pounds. They gained 300 pounds in their and putting on the twin turbos and the intercoolers and so on versus a BMW. But when the BMW says 425 horsepower, they're actually frequently they're talking about horsepower at the wheels. They act like it's their horsepower at the crank, but it's actually horsepower at the wheels if you go measured on a dyno. So their 425 horsepower engine is underrated compared with the Cadillac, and probably has around 470 horsepower, comparatively speaking. And 464 is what the ATS-V has. But I told, my editorial on this topic was the ATS-V needed to come with 525 horsepower just to shut the whole question down, right?
Right.
That that BMW is gun decking, that they're lying about their engine output. So just take that into account. Just take for granted that they're making 575 horsepower and then 475 horsepower, and then bring something with 50 horsepower more than that. So figure out what they're actually making, and then add 50, and that's your design spec.
Right.
Same weight, 50 horsepower.
Is it different in the German market or something where they don't want to advertise they have more horsepower? Like, it's a big deal to say I have more horsepower in America, right?
Yes. What they want is more performance for the horsepower, because that gives you the impression that they've put the package together so well that even though it only has 425 horsepower, it performs as if it had 475 horsepower.
Oh, I see.
So it outperforms the specification.
To brag on the engineering.
Right. So that then you're thinking, well, BMW, well, there's some goodness in the package, because they take a 3,500 pound car with only 425 horsepower, and it gets the same performance as a 475 or 500 horsepower car. So they must really match the gearbox well with the engine, with the suspension, to get that magical oomph.
Right. They must be smarter.
But what Cadillac should do is rate the ATS-V, the V series engines, the same way as horsepower at the wheels. So if the ATS-V is putting out, that's rated at 464, so that means 80% of 464, it must put out 370 horsepower at the wheels, right? So they should rate it at 380 horsepower and then say, look, it's got 380 horsepower and it goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Bite me.
But that isn't the American way, is it?
That's how I would advertise it. I would say, okay, your car, your Hellcat has 700 horsepower and goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. My ATS-V has 380 horsepower and goes 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Bite me. That would be my series of ads. Hey, BMW, your M3 has 50 more horsepower and is slower 0 to 60 at the same way. Bite me. That's Cadillac's new. That's not as highbrow as the no one reached for, I admit, but that would be my name. That's an American taunt. So, but yeah, that's what I would do. Is I would say all Cadillac V series, I would rate them for horsepower at the wheels. Now, the other problem with that is your manual transmission car would get a different rating than your automatic transmission car for the same engine. So it would confuse customers, right?
Well, they're pretty good at that already.
You don't think that's an impact? That might give a nod back to manual transmission cars, because people say, I want that 5% more horsepower.
But see, though, now you're going both ways, because you're underrating them to match BMW. But our American people want, I got more horsepower.
Yeah, exactly. Why aren't I'm going to get the 500 horsepower CTS-V, because instead of 640, they would have to advertise it as at 500 or whatever they're making at the wheels. The old ones made about 440 at the wheels. The new ones are 100 horsepower more, which probably adds 80 horsepower. So they're probably 520 at the wheels, in that range. Yeah, I think all cars should be rated that way, though. It's whatever it runs on the dyno, that should be the rating. That should be the new SAE rating. is it doesn't matter, because what that does is it encourages the manufacturers to figure out how to get the most efficient powertrain, the most efficient everything out of the way. And it would tell you more accurately how quick is the car likely to be if they advertise horsepower at the wheels.
0 to 60 pretty much does that too, huh?
Yeah, there you go. You just tell them how quick it is.
Yeah.
That's the giveaway. But we're getting within a range where cars just aren't going to get that much quicker, right? As you approach zero, there's probably a limit there.
You think you can't go below 0?
That's my theory, is that there's going to be, right now the ATSVs in the low threes, and it just is going to take a ton more power or a lot better traction or something to fix that. Yeah, what Cadillac's doing is they're working with a couple hundred of their dealers and independent body shops and getting them ready to repair a CT6. 64% of the CT6 is aluminum, including all the exterior body panels. And so they're teaching them aluminum repair techniques so that they'll be able to repair CT6s. And of course, Ford has the same issue with their F-150, where people are worried that people won't be able to repair the Fords. So Cadillac's getting a march on teaching the dealers and getting the shops ready to repair this new wonder car.
So did they learn that from, say, Ford, or you suppose that's why they learned that lesson?
Yeah, maybe to get ahead of the game, so that because the CT6 has so many driver aids that hopefully none of them will crash, but we'll see. Mike, any other topics you wanted to cover tonight?
No. Just glad to be here. Just glad to be here.
And thank goodness you were. I was about to do a 20-second show describing why we weren't having a show tonight. This is the caddyinfo.com Cadillac Chat. We do these on Thursday nights. If you want to be on live with Air Mike, the Cadillac expert, or some of the other guys that we frequently have on, you are welcome. But the reason we do this is we enjoy talking about Cadillacs and the latest Cadillac news and information and our opinions, which clearly we share freely on video. Any last words for our viewers tonight, Mike?
No, more people. We need more people.
We need more people. Send more brains. Stand by. I'm going to hit stop broadcast. Jim and Jim, we missed you tonight. I hope you guys are doing well. Tim Carroll, you're still on my list of people that haven't shown up lately, and I do want to come out and see your new shop. So holler at me and let's set that up. Okay, stand by, Mike. I'm going to hit stop broadcast. We'll have a short after show, and then we'll see you guys next week.